Again, welcome to the purpose of this book. And we are in chapter 9, The Family Afterward. We're on page 123, starting at the top. And we're not going to recap anything. We're just because we just started the chapter. We only got through a page last week, so we're going to just dive right in. Here we go. Suppose we tell you some of the obstacles a family will meet. Suppose we suggest how they may be avoided, even converted to good use for others. The family of an alcoholic longs for the return of happiness and security. They remember when father was romantic, thoughtful, and successful. Today's life is measured against that of other years, and when it falls short, the family may be unhappy.
Nothing from Ashton. Okay. Yeah, not a lot to add on this paragraph. Bill's just giving a proposal here. And I could go back to page 99 a little bit because it supports, and I guess I will. I'll go back to page 99, the second paragraph of working with others. It kind of it certainly supports what Bill talks about there in this paragraph. It says, if there be a divorce or separation, there should be no undue haste for the couple to get together. So this is probably in the moment that I'm speaking of here. The man should be sure of his recovery, so he should have that spiritual change. Nothing in my sobriety comes before, or nothing comes before my sobriety. Let me state that correctly. That's important. Other than God, God first, sobriety second, my wife third, kids fourth, job fifth, and that's for me. And it's not in the book. You won't find that anywhere. So don't go looking for it. The wife should back to the page. The wife should fully understand that his new way of life, something that we never experienced before. If their old relationship is to be resumed, it must be on a better basis. So he's kind of referencing here that in the throes of alcoholism, things weren't so good. Back on David's reading here on page 123, they're talking about, probably the moderate drinker. Maybe he went through the stages of moderate drinker, hard drinker, and then real alcoholic. And I went through those stages. And I was romantic. We were happy. I was very thoughtful and I was successful. But when alcohol became my master, I didn't have those abilities. They were taking away from me quickly, very quickly, and not to reappear again until I had a spiritual experience. So back to page 99 in the second paragraph. It says if the old relationship is to resume, it must be on a better basis since the former one did not work. This means a new attitude and spirit all around, meaning that had a spiritual experience, working these steps, living the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12. And I need to have both. Need to have a new attitude and I need to have a new spirit all around. Sometimes it is the best interest of all concerned that a couple remain apart. Obviously, no rule can be laid down. Let the alcohol continue his program day by day. I don't take a day off, period, the end. I get on my knees in the morning. I invite God in and I practice the steps 10, 11, and 12 throughout the day. And then the night I get on my knees again and thank you for another clean and sober day and prosperous day, 99.9% of the time. And then the last sentence there says, when the time for living together has come in, it'll be apparent to both parties. So we'll just know. We'll intuitively know if we mend that stuff. But back to what David read there, says, they remember when the father was romantic, thoughtful, and successful. Today's life is measured against that of other years. And when it falls short, the family may be unhappy. So when that falls short, for me, that is living in untreated alcoholism, like reacting to situations instead of responding to them, pausing when agitated or doubtful. There's plenty of direction in this book, and how to have a disagreement, not to be argument or fault finding. These are spiritual principles of success I can live by to have a better relationship. My wife, I have found out, and you may be shocked in your life with your better half, that they did not need to change anything. But what happened to me, anyways, was that when I got better, spiritually connected and spiritually fit and had a relationship with power, that mirrored their lives too, because I wasn't stealing their hope. And they started to experience the freedom that they didn't have any longer because of the alcoholism was stealing that from them on a daily basis.
Yeah, just real quick, a couple of things to point out. One sentence there, it's the second one. The family of an alcoholic longs for the return of happiness and security. And I was just thinking, security is such an important concept in our lives, remember, that's in that 4-step inventory when we get concerned about how we're affected. Security is one of those options, right? So we talked a lot about in the last chapter, and it's going to come up a lot in this one, that we have exacerbated some spiritual illness in the people in our family, the people that love us, right? So they may elect to join us on our path of getting healthy, and as such, may be working on some inventories, right? A big 4-step inventory and some ongoing 10 and 11 work. And if they do, they're probably going to identify the threats to their security that our drinking and drugging and behaviors caused. And then that last sentence, today's life is measured against that of other years. And when it falls short, the family may be unhappy. That's a gentle sentence. What that's saying is that we're going to compare today versus the past. And what's going to happen is expectations are going to be generated. And we all know what happens with expectations. 100% of them in a spiritually sick family turn into resentments. Not most of them, not some of them, but all those expectations turn into resentments, right? Moving on. Family confidence in dad is rising high. The good old days will soon be back, they think. Sometimes they demand that dad bring them back instantly. God, they believe, almost owes this recompense on a long overdue account. But the head of the house has spent years in pulling down the structures of business, romance, friendship, health. These things are now ruined or damaged. It will take time to clear away the wreck. Though old buildings will eventually be replaced by finer ones, the new structures will take years to complete.
I have recompense, meaning compensation.
Thank you, Ashton. Yeah, so the family's confidence in dad is rising high, and this kind of goes to the point what David said. Their expectations are rising too, and as David pointed out, expectation is a resentment under construction. So I got to be careful what my expectations are of anyone else. I'm not speaking for the family; I'm speaking for myself. The good old days will soon be back again. An expectation, they think they have hope. Belief and hope are the same thing. And then they're saying sometimes they demand that dad bring them back instantly. Then they almost blame God here because God owes them, is what the sentence says. God, they believe, almost owes them this repayment, a long overdue account. So I cannot blame God for what has happened in my life. That is not of His doing. I am responsible for what I have done, and that's just how I speak to that sentence. Then it says, but the head of the house has spent years in pulling down the structure of business, romance, friendship, and health. Read Bill's first 8 pages of his story. Exactly what he did. Build it up, tore it down, build it up, tore it down. My story is identical to that. Had to get a couple months of sobriety or be able to control my drinking in some shape or form or fashion. Not doing very well at it. And then all bets are off again because I have this abnormal reaction to alcohol and drugs. So once I put it in my body, then it says these things are now ruined or damaged. It will take time. So this is not an overnight matter. We talk about that in knowing that I didn't wreck this thing overnight. It's certainly not going to get repaired overnight. It takes some time. They give us a time frame here. And then though our old buildings will eventually be replaced, so be rebuilt by finer ones. The new, I love when Bill puts the word new in there because it's an experience that I've never had before. This structure will take years to complete. But it will happen. It's like a promise coming true for me. If I stay true and I'm honest and diligent and thorough about the work in Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I will have that spiritual experience. Life will change for me and my family. It will affect others in such a positive manner. It is absolutely impossible for that not to happen. Whether or not I get back together with her or him, whatever my mate is, and that, or even with my kids. And I've seen plenty of people that I've worked with over the years who have lost being able to be a parent to their children, the course of taking that away from them. And then after they stay true to the program and do the work slowly in a time frame manner, things have been given back to them. And they can only thank God and the work that they do in the program for having it happen. And that's what we watch. We watch that. We don't want to miss out on that. We do not want to miss on that, because that is the joy of Alcoholics Anonymous, watching people's life, living two lives in one. That life I lived before I got here and that life I live now are completely 180 degrees different. So that's all I got there.
Yeah, so I think it's getting clear Bill is doing the same thing that he did so much in the last chapter. He's really painting the picture of spiritual sickness throughout the entire family unit. And a couple of things that he said here. So in the the third sentence, sometimes they demand that dad bring them back instantly. The good old days. I was thinking about, as alcoholics and addicts, our entire approach to life is based on instant gratification. It's not until we get healthy that we start to understand the long game, earning towards successes. So the family around us has been sickened, as I keep making this point, by us, that they expect the sort of instant results as well, right? And we have made things so rough on them that they're demanding God make this happen, which is sort of ludicrous, right? That I think we can appreciate how people feel this way, but God does not work like a valet on our terms and on our timing, right? And then David talked about all the pulling down, and Bill's using this analogy here to rebuilding. He has all of these other building metaphors and things that he uses right through the book, the cement and the mortar and the sand and the mixing and the art, right? All these things, because his grandfather that raised him was a mason and a builder, right? So this is a thing that he does, but I think it's handy too, because it does a good job of drawing these analogies and illustrating these ideas to keep them simple, so we can envision the destruction of everything that was crushed. But then we see some hope around, yeah, things are going to get better. They're going to be reconstructed, and it's going to be more beautiful than before. And this is a promise, guys, right? It's the reality. It's going to take time to clear away the wreck, but this is a promise. Old buildings will eventually be replaced by finer ones. And if you guys have been studying with us, you hear me talk about the promise that's in the story between Roland Hazard and Dr. Jung on page 27, when our old ideas, emotions, and attitudes are cast aside and replaced with new ones. He doesn't say this exactly, but I take great pains to see it. Those thoughts and feelings and attitudes always get replaced by better ones, always get replaced by finer ones, never by worse ones or similar ones, right? The entire point of getting better is that we get better. Moving on.
Excuse me.
go
Let me
ahead.
add one little
Yeah.
thing that came to my mind, and I think I had this written down somewhere in the 10th step is at the intersection of prayer and hard work, I will find God. So that's reminding me all the time that I should pray first, and I should always continue to do this work. Like step 10 starts in the beginning of the day. The clock doesn't run out on 10. And I got to stay there. So otherwise I'm in untreated alcoholism. But if I'm doing the what at, the watch, the ask, the discuss, the turn, and the amend, and I did that out of order. I apologize, but I got them all. Nonetheless, if I'm doing that, then I am recovering. I am having emotional sobriety. Then I can affect other people in a positive way. But if I'm not doing that work, if I just kind of stop and I not finished all my amends and I'm just dragging my feet on kind of stuff, my life isn't any different. It really isn't. And you know what I am? I'm worse when I'm not drinking. I am worse in untreated alcoholism. So I have to be aware and awake to these things. And then, like I said, at the intersection of prayer and hard work, that's where I will find God. And it's never, ever failed me yet.
Paragraph 3. Father knows he is to blame. It may take him many seasons of hard work to be restored financially, but he shouldn't be reproached. Perhaps he will never have much money again, but the wise family will admire him for what he is trying to be rather than for what he is trying to get.
Nothing with reproach.
Just kidding. I do have reproach.
You got me.
Reproach meaning blamed.
Okay. Or criticized, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
I
cool.
think they
Yeah.
were.
So father knows he was to blame. So the only reason he probably knows is probably because he did a fourth step and he's got a
Mhm.
fourth column and
Mhm.
he knows he's looking at his faults and we're not looking at parts. I don't look at parts in the fourth step because then if I'm looking at parts, I'm looking at your parts and I don't need to do that. I need to look at my wrongs, my faults. That's what that fourth step is for. And it said it may take him many seasons of hard work. Another time frame. Again, I didn't wreck this thing overnight. I'm not going to rebuild it overnight. And my experience actually is not my job, not my wife, not my kids, not my finances, all given to me by a power greater than myself. And then he's entrusted me with it. What can I do with it? How should I treat it all? I need to be responsible with my money. I need to be responsible with my relationship and be courteously thoughtful and loving and kind and tolerant with my wife. I need to be awake in part of my children's life as they were growing up, and I got to do that. I was very blessed to have that opportunity to be there. And then also at the same time, it's like I got to take pride, the proper use of pride, meaning when I go to work, I do the job I'm asked to do, and I do it to the best ability that God has given me. And the same thing happens in the steps. And in my career, I'm a salesperson. I own my own business, and I find that the service that I've done in Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous parallels exactly what I get to do in my career, because it's always about how I can be of maximum service to God and all his kids. It's never I look at the money. I never look at the money. I don't need to look at the money. God will take care of that. He just does. Financial amends. If I do my financial amends, my financial security will lead me. That's the 9 step promise, one of them. So, and then the last thing here is says, but he shouldn't be reproached. So he shouldn't be criticized. Bill's taking a little path because he was always stealing from Lois's slender purse, and he had built it up. He was rich, rich, rich at one time, and he burned it all to the ground, tore the whole building down around him. Then it says, but the wise family will admire him for what he is trying to be rather than for what he is trying to get. So if my priorities are correct, if I'm doing the things that I believe God wants me to do, and I'm going to counsel, I have a sponsor, a big book sponsor. I have some running buddies in this program, and their demonstrations, and the people that came before me. And thank you, thank you, thank you for the people who came before me, because you were demonstrations and how to go to work every day, how to save a couple dollars. My first sponsor said, if you get $5 left over at the end of the week, pay yourself that $5 and put it away and do not spend it. And I've done that ever since I've been sober for a couple 24 hours. He wasn't a financial advisor. Trust me, he just wasn't. He just like, dude, you're horrible with money, and that's something probably, and this is off the books, probably something they should teach us in school, how to manage money. They don't do that. I've never used algebra a day in my life or trigonometry. I can't even say it. So why would I use it? I just think managing money is kind of the key. And I say that's because I'm being responsible with God's money, because he's trusted me with it. That's it.
I don't think I have anything to add to that one. I'll just carry on here. Now and then the family will be plagued by specters from the past. For the drinking career of almost every alcoholic has been marked by escapades. Funny, humiliating, shameful, or tragic. The first impulse will be to bury these skeletons in a dark closet and padlock the door. The family may be possessed by the ideas that future happiness can be based only upon forgetfulness of the past. We think that such a view is self-centered and in direct conflict with the new way of living.
I have two here. So I have specters meaning ghosts. And then I also have escapades, which is mischievous adventures.
Thank you, Ashton. Yeah. So Bill's bringing up the past. I mean, we're in early sobriety here. Probably, hopefully, we're making our 9th step, and we're in the 10th step already. That's my hope, anyways. When I'm reading this paragraph and the prior paragraphs, and then it says, for the drinking career of almost every alcoholic, and I think it is true. My experience, every alcoholic has been marked by escapades of funny, humiliating, shameful, or tragic. I crossed out the word funny. There was nothing funny in my in my drinking. It really wasn't. Like I've heard some speakers, some like circus speakers. When I first got sober, I listened to cassette tapes of people that were so funny. I would be dying laughing while I was driving every day, and I was going, I got nothing funny. I'm gonna fall down, hide in someone else's basement for a week, and get drunk and get high, and just come out and I realize that I've been gone for a week. That's not funny. That's humiliating. It's shameful. It's tragic, and it does some horrible things to my family by not being present. The first impulse will be that you bury these skeletons in the dark closet and padlock the door. I don't know how. Maybe the family can do that. My wife, my kids were very forgiving rather quickly because my demonstration was I was going to meeting almost every day. I was working with others all the time, and I was practicing these principles in all my affairs. So something was changing in my life. And then next thing it says the family may be possessed by the idea that future happiness can be based upon forgetfulness of the past. So again, I can't shut the door on the past. It's my greatest asset. You know, especially if I'm working with another alcoholic and working with others, it talks about that. That's when we have our discussion with another person is we can share that war story, you know, and then hopefully that demonstration of my life is that they want what I have, and they do the work that I did, and they'll get the same experience that I had, and are having. And then it says we think that such a view is self-centered and direct conflict with the new way of living. New way of living again. The word new pops up. So a way that I've never experienced before. And I'm always open to it. God, give me anything new you want to give me, and I'll do the best I can with it. Just give me anything you want to give me new, God, and I'll try. I'll work with it. You know, most of the time I never have to do it by myself. I have never found one thing in Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous that I had to do by myself. And I was taught that at 3 months sober is when the obsession was removed from me. And there's a meeting that I used to go to, and on the wall it says, "You're not alone anymore." And I couldn't figure out what the heck that meant for 3 months until I got sober and the obsession was removed. When I reached out to you because I wanted to drink at 3 months sober, and I didn't drink that day, I went, oh my goodness. And from that point on, the obsession has been removed. That's when I knew I wasn't alone anymore. If I reach out to God, if I reach out to you, if I continue to do this work and give of myself to another alcoholic, I can have permanent sobriety. I can have freedom from bondage to self, because Bill's talking about that. We think such a view is self-centered. Self-centered means that I'm the center of the world. That's all I can think about. You know, like my grandson's 16 months old, and we were all 16 months old at one time, right? And he's self-centered. He's only thinking of himself. Like when he's playing, he's walking around making a mess everywhere. We love every little bit of it, but he's only thinking of himself. He knocks all his food off his tray when he's done. That's self-centered. That's okay. I need to outgrow that. I need to mature and grow up and not be self-centered. And according to pages 62, 63, self-centeredness is what's going to kill me. I need to be rid of that. And I don't have the ability to do that in my own power. But that means if I do that, I can have the emotional sobriety that's promised to me in the 10-step promises.
So a couple of things. So it's now and then the family will be plagued by specters from the past, like ghosts. And I'm going to go somewhere with this ghost idea. For the drinking career of almost every alcoholic has been marked by escapades. And so you got funny, humiliating, shameful, and then tragic, right? I mean, I think Bill does a nice choice of those four words going lower, 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 bottom, tragic, right? And then I was thinking too about this idea of these being specters, and maybe because it's the holiday season, I was thinking about the Christmas Carol, you know, the novel by Dickens. And Scrooge is visited first by his former business partner, who was a terrible guy like Scrooge was, right? And he's like, basically shows up and says, "You don't change the way you're living life, you're going to be doomed in the way that I'm doomed," you know, which is kind of a good message, I think, to an alcoholic or an addict, right? And then what happens later is Scrooge gets visited by like these three ghosts, right? The past, the present, and the future. So I was thinking, man, as I'm thinking here, um, my escapades, and like when I really go back and I remember, and David said he doesn't even have any funny times. I'm sure, maybe I do, I don't know, but I could be visited by the ghost of funny alcoholic experiences of the past, and I could certainly be visited by the ghosts of humiliating alcoholic escapades of the past and shameful alcoholic escapades of the past and tragic ones, you know? And what's the ultimate tragedy is death. And I'm lucky enough to still be alive and kicking and you know, and an agent of God. But some people close to me weren't so successful. You know, my best friend from high school, I share sometimes died from alcoholism. My best friend from college died from alcoholism, and many other people I've known. But, you know, two men that were like brothers to me. Tragic. And I had many escapades with these guys, you know, and those ghosts still come around sometimes. And it's, you know, sometimes working with a new man or in the appropriate setting to share some of those stories because somebody needs to hear that, yeah, I had tragic, shameful, humiliating, sometimes ridiculous experiences too, and you're with someone who understands, right? Um, and then this other point that Bill is rolling towards is we are not to take this stuff in the past, you know, and lock it up and throw away the key. You know, we have the promise that we're given, right, on 83 in the ninth step promises. Now, no matter how far down the scale we've gone, I'm just paraphrasing, we'll see our experience can benefit others. So it is promised to me and directed to me that all of the shameful, tragic, terrible things, that's a weapon now. That's a tool. That's an asset. And that's why Bill goes on to conclude this paragraph by saying, we think that such a view is self-centered. If I'm sitting in fear and shame to not utilize this, I'm just thinking about me, right? What is the expression of self-centeredness and fear and pride? It's all about me being afraid of what you guys are going to think. And I can't be sitting in the fear, right? It's in direct conflict with the new way of living, which is to use everything I have, you know, that's in me and that's God given to go out and help other people. And in the next paragraph, we're going to see Bill's going to hammer this point, talking about how important my history is, and not just my history, but the entire family's history as it relates to the alcoholism and the shared spiritual sickness. Let's dive right into it. So, top paragraph of 124. Henry Ford once made a wise remark to the effect that experience is the thing of supreme value in life. That is true only if one is willing to turn the past to good account. We grow by our willingness to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. The alcoholic's past thus becomes the principal asset of the family, and frequently is almost the only one. What do you got, Ash?
I have rectify, which is to make right.
Thank you. Let me hop in here. So,
Please.
so Bill's drawing on, you know, a notable business leader and thought leader from a long time ago, Henry Ford, you know, Ford Motor Company, right? One of the first people making mass producing automobiles, made a wise remark to the effect that experience is the thing of supreme value in life. This is not a new concept in our this book, guys, or in the path of recovery. Said another way, the things that I do, the action that I take, the demonstrations that I make are of supreme value. Right? That's true only if one is willing to turn the past to good account. We grow by our willingness to face and rectify errors and convert them into assets. So this is the point I was making. I cannot be in fear. Fear doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve my family. And it doesn't serve any of the other 8 billion people, God's children on this planet, that I'm supposed to be fitting myself to be of maximum service to. All right? Fear only sucks me down deeper. And the entire point here, this is what Bill has been building toward, that the alcoholic's past then thus becomes rather, the principal asset of the family. Here was my experience, who I used to be, what happened to affect a change, and what I'm like now. Right? So not only is it the principal asset of the family, he's saying frequently it's almost the only one. And I think he's saying intangible asset, like it's sort of just the only thing of value we can offer. But I think he also means tangible assets too, because in how many cases have we brought financial ruin down, right? We lost everything. We lost money, we lost homes, we lost our kids, like David, we literally had nothing. So what are we left with? We're left with our history of who I used to be, how I got better, and how I'm living today. That's the demonstration. That's the experience.
Yeah, not much to add to that. I will say there's a word that Henry Ford's using here. It says, once made a wise remark to the effect that experience, not belief, experience, that's important, is the thing of supreme value. So, to the effect of the supreme value in life. So, my definition that I have written down for value is a person's principle or standard of behavior, one's judgment of what's important in life.
Mm.
So I got to understand and prioritize what is important in life. And again, that's why the people who came before me, your experience is so important, and important in a lot of different ways. One way is that we carry this message at a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. This message, not my message, which is a little of the 12 and 12, a little of the big book, and a whole lot of my opinion, which will get you really dead. So, but for those of us who study this book and want to carry that message, and there's others that don't, and they do a fine job too, and there's others that do a lot of damage in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I might say. But then it says that is true only if one is willing to turn the past to good account. So that is the key. I got to turn the key of the door of willingness. I got to want to do this. I have to be willing to do the work here. And when I become willing, something happens every single time. We grow by our willingness to face and rectify the errors and convert them into assets. That sounds like steps 4 through 10. You know, doing that inventory, sitting down with another, going to God with my defects of character, making out my list, become willing to make that amends to other people, and then actually going out there and making my amends, and then immediately starting step 10. Then it says the alcoholic's past thus becomes the principal asset of the family, and frequently is almost the only one. So he's reaffirming what he's reaffirmed 3 or 4 paragraphs now, that our past is our principal asset.
So going into this next paragraph, Bill is going to triple down on this idea. So a couple paragraphs ago, he's saying, you know, if we try to squirrel away our history, we're being self-centered in direct conflict with the new way of living. Then he doubled down in the paragraph we just covered there, right? He's saying, you know, the alcoholic's past thus becomes the principal asset of the family. Now he's tripling down and he's saying, this painful past may be of infinite value to other families still struggling with their problems. I don't know if you have infinite, Ash. If not, please look it up. We think each family which has been relieved owes something to those who have not. Did you guys catch that? We think each family which has been relieved owes something to those who have not what? Not been relieved. And when the occasion requires, each member of it should be only too willing to bring former mistakes, no matter how grievous, out of their hiding places. Showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have. Wow. The key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them.
I
That's
do
a
have
heavy
infinite.
paragraph. Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Ash.
No, sorry. That is a hefty paragraph. Infinite without limits of any kind. And then I also have grievous, which is painful and distressing.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, like David said, he's really just doubling down on all this stuff here. But let's go through the paragraph a little bit. This painful past, maybe infinite value. Yeah, it is a painful past. You're darn right it is. It's not. I didn't get a head coat or stub my toe. I actually destroyed people's life and my own along with it. The painful past may be of infinite value to others. So, like, there's no time on it. Like infinite, like God's infinite, and I'm finite. So this value, and families still struggling with their problem. We think each family, which, and I love what David did here, which has been relieved, owes something to those who have not. It's not. This is an obligation of mine. I need to carry this message to those who are still suffering. I have to do this if I'm going to remain sober on my own. On my own power, I can't do this. On my own power, how am I doing with the bedevilments? I have to. I get to do this work, and I get to give the whole thing away every single day. Give it away and start fresh by getting up in the morning and inviting God in. And it says, we think each family has been relieved, owes something to those who have not had that experience yet. And when the occasion requires, each member of it should be only too willing to bring former mistakes. I have shared, even in sobriety, I have not been a saint. Please, I have not been a saint. And I know there's a couple of my guys on here today, and we've had this discussion. Yeah, I've done that in sobriety. I've treated my wife not the correct way. I've been disrespectful. I've been angered. You know, I've assassinated her character from, it's been a while. I'm aware of it. I'm awake. Try not to do it today. I can express my feelings without getting angry. I can pause when agitated and not have that conversation right now at all. I can call someone in this program and can talk about it, counsel with them to see if this is even a good idea to do, to have this discussion with my wife. And at that moment, it probably is not. So it says, no matter how grievous, out of their hiding places. So there's a whole lot of principles of success in that paragraph. What I haven't pointed out, it says, and then it says, cling to the thought, in God's hands, the darkest past is our greatest possession. In God's hands, not in my hands. My hands, I'll mess the whole thing up. This is not a self-help program. This is a God help program. I have to remember that. And this says you have the key to life and happiness for others. I am entrusted just the same way as to carry this message. Entrusted to carry this message is the key to life and happiness for others too. Not my message. Again, this message will allow that to happen. And with it, you can avert death and misery for them. That is a promise. People are dying from this disease, and misery is happening every day. But if I make good demonstration in those people's lives, and if they're willing, and I will match your willingness, whatever amount of time I need to spend with you, especially early on, I want to take you through these steps quickly. And as Howard and Kathy use this all the time, because we do not know with the window of opportunity how fast it's going to slam shut. So let's get busy and do this work quickly. And when I do that work quickly with others, there starts to be a change. And that change has to take place inside of me here. I just want to go to the bottom of the paragraph here because I've taken enough time on it. It's halfway through, it talks about showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life so worthwhile to us now. There is nothing in my experience in Alcoholics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, is working one-on-one with another alcoholic. That to me, dude, gets my juices flowing. Watching that change in my life, like a lot of my guys would say this, and I've done this to my sponsor before. I don't do it any longer because I know it's not to be true. Oh, I don't want to call him because he's too busy. No, that's not why I'm not calling him. I'm not calling him because I don't think it's that important to have to call him. But I want them to know I am an open book. Please call me. I need as much help from you as I can possibly get because I know that you help me way more than I help you. I promise you that. And the thing is that we do this one way and one way only, shoulder to shoulder. That's all I got.
So super powerful paragraph here. The painful past may be of infinite, never-ending, unlimited value to other families still struggling with their problem. We can relate to them. They can relate to us. They can get some hope, right? That is the infinite value. And then how about this? We think each family which has been relieved owes something to those who have not. Who've not been relieved. And when the occasion requires, each member of it should be only too willing to bring our former mistakes, no matter how grievous, out of their hiding places. What does this sound like? To me, this sounds like the obligation of the 12th step, right? Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we carried this message. And get the word try out of there. I don't like the T word, right? Because I'm a devotee of Yoda. Yoda says there's no try, right? So what do? I carried the message. And so by extension, Bill is saying, hey, the family, David's family that's reconstructed through God's grace and our action, the whole family has an obligation. We got to go do this together. And I was thinking about one other thing for another callback. So that's, so call it back to step 12 on page 58, 59, wherever that is. And then I love in Dr. Bob's story, if you want to make a note, sort of a call forward on page bottom of 180, he says, I spend a great deal of time passing on what I've learned to others who want and need it badly. I do it for 4 reasons. What's number 1? Sense of duty. What's another way of talking about duty? Obligation. What's an obligation? It's something that I owe, right? I owe so much. And David was talking about being a fallible, no matter how long we've been sober or how good the quality of our sobriety is, we can be I'll speak for myself. I can still be a terrible, fallible person. I can not want to answer the phone when I see someone calling or when the hotline is calling. I can be like, I got to go to the meeting. Like there's all these ways I can be full of sloth and selfishness. And what I'm being reminded here repeatedly is I don't really have that luxury. And if I'm not acting on a sense of duty and obligation, I'm not returning the gift that God gave me. And I'm really talking about myself here, guys. I'm not coming at you from the pulpit, believe me. I'm sure I fall down more than any of you guys. Showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. That sounds like a promise. What a great way to go through life, living that way. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have. Bill's just beating us with this idea of how powerful our past is. The key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them. What a promise. Is that the second most powerful promise in the book? Probably number 1 being that we recover. That's probably the most powerful and important promise, but good Lord, tell me some other organization, some other system for living where you're promised you can avert death and misery for other people. It's a lot of power that we're channeling through God. As I always say, God does not give me the power because I would be like a bad Marvel villain and I would put that power to bad use. God uses me as his agent and uses his power to do the right stuff, to do the right things.
Let me add one little thing there,
Please.
if you don't mind. So, and that last paragraph, it says, with it, we can avert death and misery for them. So that's a promise. And David did this in a meeting a couple weeks ago when we were in a live meeting. If you guys had never seen a piece of literature from Alcoholics Anonymous called Why We Were Chosen, please get it. And he read it out loud, and probably at least 50, 60% of the room that had never heard it before and asked you what it was, at least 75. Yeah. Being generous, I'm giving them a little credit. But the thing is like the darn read that. It's one of my favorite pieces to think. It brings me to tears today to think that we were chosen. Not the doctors, not the lawyers, and I'm paraphrasing. Not the judges. No one else was. We were chosen to carry this message because we were the fall down drunks. We our greatest possession in life, and we have the key to life and happiness for others. We were chosen to carry this message. Again, as David pointed out, those definitions, it is our obligation. I owe this to the new guy, and never to give up on that new guy, even if he relapses. Because why? Because I understand the first step. I understand the powerlessness. I understand the unmanageability in the first step. And I don't have but that is the problem statement. We have 11 more steps, which are the solution and will outweigh that first step problem and give us the solution that we all can recover permanently.
All right, everybody, I need to see a hand raised. Is anybody here not familiar with Why We Were Chosen, the reading? Don't be shy. Janice? Oh, June? Oh, Jamie? Really? Okay, we're reading it. All right, guys.
It's lovely.
Yeah, you'll love this. You may weep. This is taken from a talk that this guy named Judge John T. gave at the fourth anniversary of the Chicago Group in 1943. So for some of us out here in the extended Chicagoland area, like me and David and Ash and Jamie, it's a kind of a big deal. It's happened in our backyard, but 81 years ago, if I did my math correctly, 1943. Yeah.
Mhm.
Here's the excerpt from why we were chosen. And if you Google why we were chosen AA, you'll find this. But I'll read it to everybody. I'm sure Rob. Oh, of course. Before I even said it, Rob's already got a link. All right, of course. God, in His wisdom, selected this group of men and women, us, you guys, to be purveyors of His goodness. In selecting them through whom to bring about this phenomenon, He went not to the proud, the mighty, the famous, or the brilliant. He went instead to the humble, to the sick, to the unfortunate. He went right to the drunkard, the so-called weakling of the world. Well, He might have said the following words to us. Unto your weak and feeble hands I have entrusted a power beyond estimate. To you has been given that which has been denied the most learned of your fellows. Not to scientists or statesmen, not to wives or mothers, not even to my priests or ministers have I given this gift of healing other alcoholics, which I entrust to you. It must be used unselfishly. It carries with it grave responsibility. No day can be too long. Every time I read this, I'm always like, am I doing enough? No.
I'm not.
No day can be too long. No demands upon your time can be too urgent. No case can be too pitiful. No task too hard. No effort too great. It must be used with tolerance, for I have restricted its application to no race, no creed, and no denomination. Personal criticism you must expect. Lack of appreciation will be common. Ridicule will be your lot. Your motives will be misjudged. You must be prepared for adversity. For what men call adversity is the ladder you must use to ascend the rungs towards spiritual perfection. And remember, in the exercise of this power, I shall not extract from you beyond your capabilities. You are not selected because of exceptional talents, and be careful always. If success attends your efforts, not to ascribe to personal superiority, that to which you can lay claim only by virtue of my gift, God's gift. If I had wanted learned men to accomplish this mission, this power would have been entrusted to the physician and scientist. If I had wanted eloquent men, there would have been many anxious for the assignment. For talk is the easiest used of all the talents with which I have endowed mankind. Woof! If I had wanted scholarly men, the world is filled with better qualified men than you who would be available. You were selected because you have been the outcasts of the world, and your long experience as drunkards has made, or should make, you humbly alert to the cries of distress that come from the lonely hearts of alcoholics everywhere. Keep ever in mind the admission you made on the day of your profession in AA, namely that you are powerless and that it was only with your willingness to turn your life and your will unto my keeping that relief came to you. That's something else.
Mm,
Woo,
love that.
woo. I just got chills again reading that. Thanks for entertaining that.
hmm
Whew. Okay. Let's pick back up on 124. Bottom paragraph. It is possible to dig up past misdeeds so they become a blight, a veritable plague. For example, we know of situations in which the alcoholic or his wife have had love affairs. In the first flush of spiritual experience, they forgave each other and drew closer together. The miracle of reconciliation was at hand. Then, under one provocation or another, the aggrieved one would unearth the old affair and angrily cast its ashes about. A few of us have had these growing pains, and they hurt a great deal. Husbands and wives have sometimes been obliged to separate for a time until new perspective, new victory over hurt pride could be re-won. In most cases, the alcoholic survived this ordeal without relapse, but not always. So we think that unless some good and useful purpose is to be served, past occurrences should not be discussed.
I have a few from here. So blight would be anything that ruins one's plans or withers one's hopes. Veritable, meaning real or factual. Flush, a sudden rush of feeling. And then aggrieved, being injured.
Yeah, great definitions, Ashton. It's important to know those definitions on the end those in that paragraph there. I'm not going to comment a lot on this paragraph. The only thing I'm going to point out is the very bottom of page 124 in the third paragraph. It talks about the last two sentences. Then, and under one provocation or another, the aggrieved one would unearth the old affair and angrily cast its ashes about. Back on 117 to chapter 2 wives. In the third paragraph, Bill was giving us directions. He was being very self-serving prior to that, but he gives us a nice, simple direction in the last paragraph on that page in the last sentence. Just be careful not to disagree in a resentful or critical spirit. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And then it says, back to our text tonight. A few of us have had these growing pains and they hurt a great deal. Husbands and wives have sometimes been obliged to separate for some time until new perspective. And again, the word new, a new victory, a new experience, probably some counseling, I'm guessing. I would suggest possibly, I don't know how you get past that. I didn't have this experience. And then it says, here's the warning. In most cases, the alcoholic survived this ordeal without relapse, but not always. I need to be aware whether she did or she did not, or I did or I did not, that my relationship with my sobriety is dependent upon a relationship with God. I desperately need God, no matter what the situation is, jail, no jail, job, no job, wife, no wife. I can stay sober if with a relationship with God. And back to the pamphlet that David read, helping others. I got to make one little comment about that.
Please.
That pamphlet in itself, in page 52 in the Benevolence, talks about being feeling uselessness. When I read that pamphlet, it tells me in great detail that if I'm doing at least some of that, I'm not doing all that. Trust me, I have spent lots and lots and lots of hours with a lot of people. I'm going to feel useful. I am going to get a buzz. I am going to feel like God is closer than my breath. And that has been my experience so many darn times, because I think for me, and I've heard this from others, that usefulness is the key to life. And that's what I feel today, especially when I'm working with another alcoholic, one-on-one, drug addict, one-on-one. And even for that matter, the family or a child or whatever, like I get to feel useful today. This is being recovered. Back to our text today. In most cases, the alcoholics survive this ordeal without relapse, but not always. And then lastly, it says we think that unless some good and useful purpose be served, past occurrences should not be discussed. I have no experience with that whatsoever, because it never happened to me and my family. I was blessed that did not happen. But I think a healthy relationship can survive a lot of things. I think for me, as a recovered alcoholic, I am not seeking treatment today with a psychiatrist or psychologist. I have in the past, but I certainly do seek counsel from people in Alcoholics Anonymous that have experience and are demonstrations in my life. I call those people my running buddies.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a tremendous amount to add to this, other than, and we brought this up several times in the chapter to wives, you know, Bill was not always a faithful husband as he was on his own spiritual path. And sometimes some of these references that he puts in here saying don't talk about infidelity feels a little self-serving, right? It's okay. Bill's still a great man. He saved all of our lives. He contributed to that, but he was a fallible guy too, right? And I just one other thing, on a more positive note, towards the top of 125, new victory over hurt pride. So it's another reference back to the inventory process. So again, this should be pretty clear if you've been studying with us. Such a critical part of how we get recovered and stay recovered is inventory, right? And whether you do it formally or whether you do it informally, as long as you're doing it, that's the most important thing. When I put my head on the pillow at night, have I identified where I was wrong? Maybe I didn't get a chance to make them right because it's 11 o'clock at night, or 8:30 for me, which is like 11 o'clock for other people. But I can still make those things right the next day, right? The key is inventory, share it, and not keep making these same mistakes. Okay, while we're at 2 minutes, I don't think we should read another paragraph. So we'll just stop a minute or two early. So just want to remind everybody, in case you came on after we made this announcement, we're going to take next week off. It's Christmas for many people, so we're going to skip the study. But 2 weeks from today, which I think is New Year's, we will be back into the study. Let me stop the recording and then Bert, come on in 1 sec here.